The fall, 65 million years ago. Around 68 million years ago, there were two dominant groups of species that were considered intelligent. To be considered intelligent, your kind had to be able to undertake interstellar travel, communicate with species technologically and/or naturally outside of yours, utilize matter to improve your lifestyle leisurely and technologically, and establish complex communal and societal structures. Those two dominant groups were bipedals and amorphoids. While the vast majority of amorphoids are thetan or spirit-based, the overwhelming majority of bipedals are not. All humans are thetan-based, but reptilians are not. The following accounts for one of the descriptions of the character portrayed to be Lucifer, aka the El Guy. Note that in your Bible, it is commonly confused with Satan, who is the negative force or vibration pervading the third to fourth dimension. However, there are more than 3 unique cases which use the character term, Lucifer, to indicate either an astronomical event or an entity who was powerful but fell from glory through greed and jealousy. Some 66 million years ago, humans only represented around 2.7% of all intelligent species. We had lots of enemies, and were constantly at war with the reptilians. Around that time, a young, extremely charming and off-the-charts handsome young man came on the political scene. He was not born of royalty, but it was debated as to whether or not he was a Silesianoid hybrid. That young man drew crowds with his telepathic and vocal influence, and was fluent in the main extra skill gifts: natural telepathy, telealchemy, levitation, teleportation, and telekinesis. He quickly rose to prominence in several stellar systems, drawing crowds and supporters in the billions. Very soon, he wanted his own kingdom, so he negotiated vast amounts of lands within new stellar systems, and brought his followers to settle. We won't speak his real name, then set himself up as emperor, basing his rule on common higher human vibrational principles of love, compassion, collaboration and harmony. It was reported that his subjects were among the happiest in the humanicity system, and they referred to him as the light and illuminated one. The El Guy wanted more. He soon drew up plans for a grand human era, one where humans were at the forefront of everything in the multiverse, and one where humans were seen as the superior species to all other species. From his rule over 2 stellar systems, he gained influence in the courts and parliaments of some massively sized kingdoms and democratic systems. They ceded their ownership to him largely in part of his unnatural enigmatic charisma and reputation. Their subjects and citizens would have it no other way. In a course of roughly 1,000 years, the El Guy went from ruling over 2 stellar systems to directly and indirectly influencing over 1,000 galaxies. Note that his appeal was not just to humans, but also to bipedals, near, somewhat, and non-anthropomorphic. Probably the feather in his cap was when he negotiated peace between the ruling reptilian families and humans. The El Guy's name became a mantra in every human household. 65.5 to 64.5 million years ago. With just about everything he wanted and everyone adoring, some even praying to him, the El Guy decided to establish a religion based on him as GD. And all worship and prayers should be directed to him. His rationale for this was that he was descended from a high-level Silesianoid who was in effect one and the same with the Creator. Quite naturally, he started losing subjects and supporters, and started being denounced in temples and other spiritual places. However, he still had the support of over 3/5 of humanity, virtually all reptilians, and the majority of a lot of members of intelligent species. Citizens of the Pleiadian Federation were torn right down the middle in support for or against him. Sol, main reference to Earth, was 100% for the Elgai. The Elgai came up with a plan. In order to achieve undeterred worship, he had to replace the Creator. In probably what is the most insane plan ever concocted in the human mind, he wanted to fuse this third to fourth dimension with what he perceived to be an / the Elohim dimension. His forces, which by then also included non-third to fourth dimensional entities, would jump into the Elohim dimension and then dispose of GD. To many races and species, this sounded like and was madness. And they were right. So what did the Elgai do? He called upon his followers to start killing the heathen / the infidel. He also had massive armies that he started using to assault planets and other systems that were known to be dissidents. The Human Civil War. It was said that out of some 12 trillion intelligent humans around 65 million years ago, 1/3 supported the Elgai. That was the darkest moment in human history. The war raged for over 100 years. But it was not only humans versus humans, but also insectoids battled each other, and anthropodic-type beings decimated their own kind. The only group loving this were the reptilians, as they sought to slaughter each side of all warring species, an agenda long in the making. The Pleiades was a very sad story. Households were divided, and battles in the towns and streets became a common occurrence. Whole cities burnt, and village and community massacres befell Pleiadian infidel. Brother killed brother, fathers murdered sons, and mothers gave the names of non-compliant children to a Luciferian intelligence, who at that time had a discreet but untrusting relationship with Pleiadian intelligence. But there is something in the Pleiadian psyche. Something that prevented our ancestors from completely going astray some 80 million years ago, and that something started to re-resurrect in the hearts of all Pleiadians. The core of the Pleiadian civil war lasted for about 10 years. After that, we almost unanimously came to our senses. Why are we battling each other? How did we allow ourselves to stoop so low? Within weeks truces were called, government and military officials replaced, and we as Pleiadians became united against anything to do with the Elgai. The war had claimed the lives of over 1 billion Pleiadians. Luciferian and reptilian aka LRC forces were not taking the new Pleiadian unity too nicely. Pleiadian intelligence got word of a massive assault planned against the Pleiades, with possibilities of a MEST level 3 or DMZ detonation if LRC forces could not take it. LRC forces were winning on all sides, and it was looking like all was lost for the multiverse. The Pleiades was not under attack yet, as the Elgai was sending diplomats to give us some time to reconsider our decision. There were however skirmishes fought in the outer Federation planets with LRC forces. Some of our priests, i.e. those holding top spiritual responsibilities as you would call them, and priests of other civilizations then took a decision that we had to involve non-third to fourth dimensional forces in the war. Either that or else hope for humanity would be doomed. There is a Celestianoid battle archetype for which one of your biblical references call him / them, Michael, the Archangel. The term Michael, the Archangel, also refers to an Orion general who quelled a rebellion of Orion droids and Orion workers, and also to other types of divine assistants. The priests initiated transdensity communication with the Celestianoid battle archetype, Michael. Selesianoids are almost always hesitant to interfere with quantitative dimensional affairs, and so quite some convincing had to be done. Michael agreed. Selesianoids cut any way across space and time, something limited to us as third to fourth dimensional inhabitants. The help of Michael and his battle fleet saw victories by LRC forces reversed in real time. The LRC also used time travel, but the Selesianoids were able to lock all overturned events, and so no amount of time travel across Nospc strands by LRC operatives could re-overturn them. The LRC was losing. That was where Sol in reference to Earth and Tiamat came into play. Very succinct on Earth's fall. On Tiamat, then the Science Center of Sol, LRC scientists announced that they had finalized the fusion weapon to link this third to fourth dimension with the /an Elohim dimension. They were going to start it, and LRC crack special forces operatives would have had to be on the ready to jump into the Elohim dimension. The L guy was over-delighted. He, along with his top cadre, high-ranking reptilian and other malevolent beings, were preparing to make their way to Sol when Ka-boom! Tiamat exploded. A planet more than 1.5 times the size of Earth was ripped into countless fragments, though some very large pieces were left intact. In fact, and according to accounts, a quarter of the planet was left intact and was hurtling towards, you guessed it, Earth. But the pieces and fragments of Tiamat were the least of Earth and Mars' problems. Mars got slammed as well by fragments. Apparently, the fusing of dimensions had caused a tear in the wall of the third to fourth dimension. Note, this is not to be confused with a tear in fabric of time /space-time. What was termed as unholy radiation began seeping into this dimension. Now, as to what dimension these LRC scientists opened or made contact with, no one knows. However, everyone knows that it was not an /the Elohim dimension, because the Elohim don't need a dimension to exist. Unholy radiation moved at light speed towards Earth. Within about 10 minutes, people on Earth began choking and gasping as flora wilted. Earth had what you call force fields, and these fields were guaranteed as disaster-proof by Earth's rulers, a judgeship system, but the radiation penetrated the fields. Large animal life including dinosaurs started to perish. Earth's elite had other plans. They had for tens of thousands of years invested in underground cities, and were even expecting a day like this according to their prognostics. Quick-vac portals were immediately opened, and thousands of Earth's elite, ruling class, scientists, upper middle class, etc. Those who could make it were shuttled to some 800 miles below Earth's crust to already awaiting and established cities and new homes. Secondary evacuation portals opened up for the rest of the population. It is estimated that Earth had slightly over 650 million people then. It became a mad melee as stampedes and fights ensued, and portals only remained open for so long. Then came the debris. After some 12 hours of insane panic and innumerable deaths, a piece of Tiamat larger than the Moon slammed into Earth's force field. That piece caused reverberations not expected by scientists, as it created a massive crater, earthquakes and volcanoes, and tsunamis. 30 million people died on impact. That piece broke off into several smaller pieces upon impact, and rebounded into space. Within one day, Earth had lost over half of its 650 million inhabitants. Anti-LRC forces, aka Forces of Light, seized this opportunity along with support from Michael's forces. LRC strongholds began to fall, and galaxies and their associated non-FB realms began being liberated. The first Grand Intergalactic Council, GIC, or the Intergalactic Council, was formed. The turning point of the war was when Silesianoids and anti-LRC forces raided a mysterious and powerful realm and brought the Elgai and millions of his top brass into a more controllable manifestation. They were immediately converted to true cryostate, with the physical body being separated from other bodies and then imprisoned. Imprisonment is where all of one entity's bodies, which may or may not include the physical body, is locked within a zero-time /space-time unidimensional state. More Elgai top lieutenants were hunted down and met the same fate. The Silesianoids were taking less of a role now that the objective had been reached. The GIC took a decision that since Sol played the key role in LRC strategy, that the Elgai and trillions of his top core supporters and their minions should be contained in a prison realm, i.e. permanent imprisonment within the Solian system. It was chosen that some realms off where Tiamat was, would be converted for such purpose. The Elgai, his supporters, and many minions, human and non-human, were transported to that holding area, and that is where they are today.